Welcome to the Living Loud and Proud podcast, brought to you by Disability Pride, Pennsylvania. If you need a link to the transcript for this episode, please visit our accessible website at www.disabilitypridepa.org/podcast. And now, here is your host.
Hey, welcome to the Living Loud and Proud podcast. Today's episode is From Freak Show to Full Monty, a discussion of the career of Mat Fraser. I'm your host, Phill Rosen. I'm here with my co-host, Ray DECA Horton. How's it going, Ray?
All right. How's everybody doing today?
And today I thought, let's take a little bit of a detour from what we've been doing with the history and everything that we've been doing on the podcast. And let's talk about something in pop culture. Disabled actor. Ray, what do you know about Mat Fraser? Do you have any insights?
Okay. The subject is Mat Fraser. Okay. I really didn't know too much about Mat Fraser until a few years ago when I started watching the show Loudermilk. And the odd thing is I was also watching another show, His Dark Materials. And Mat Fraser was on both shows. And by the way, on Loudermilk, he's my most favorite character. I did look up some stuff about him, found that he was an actual musician. He's an all-around artist. Saw some things about, how he's like into the whole alt lifestyle and everything, alt art and all that other stuff. But I really don't know too much, but I assume that you researched him a little bit more in depth than I did.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair statement right there. So Let's get right into it. He was born. Yeah, he was born in 1961 or 1962 in Colchester, Essex, with phocomylia. This is a condition that stemmed from his mother taking thalidomide during pregnancy. Do you know anything about the history of thalidomide, Ray?
No, tell me.
Okay, so the side effects of thalidomide were not fully known at the time. I believe it was a painkiller that was marketed as like a safe thing for pregnant women to take, which, of course, there weren't that many at the time. And it was used widely in Europe at the time. And the side effects, which became known after a few years, were used as a way to justify the expansion of the FDA's review process for pharmaceuticals here in America. So there's kind of an interesting little anecdote there. The condition, phocomylia, I'm sure many people don't really know what that means broadly. So it means seal-like limbs. And you know a little bit about Matt.
Yeah, the character he played in American Horror Story was the seal freak, the seal guy.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's correct. And so his arms are very short. I saw somewhere that they're no more than 6 inches long. I don't know how accurate that is, but it's what I could find.
Okay. I mean, they appear a little longer than that, but not too much.
Right. And I actually have a quote here from Matt about his journey in school. So the first month in a new school was a voyage of painful discovery for me. At first, kids would be intrigued. They'd be too nice and over-friendly. They would rush up and demand that I played football with them. And I want to make sure that for all of the Americans out there, that we're talking about soccer here, not American football. I feel like I have to make that distinction every time I mention it on the podcast. And of course, I mean, what do you think his reaction was to all of this?
Knowing Mat Fraser, he probably was a little not feeling that, I'm going to say, Yeah,
he obviously, knowing his personality, pushed back on this. And of course, this leads to, well, what else? Bullying.
Right.
But over time, he did make friends with one of the hard lads, quote unquote, and became part of the crew. He became accepted. And this is a theme that I believe has just kind of been throughout his life. He's been able to make friends fairly easily, but it always starts off a little weird for people with physical disabilities, right? Because
Right.
people other them so easily, or well, anyone with disabilities really, but as we all know. Another quote from him was, "I was very isolated as a kid. I was the only disabled person I knew. I was certainly the only thalidomide person I knew." And so what do you think about this in general? This kind of is a theme that's common for a lot of people with disabilities, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
kind of this isolation from others in their community or other disabled individuals, of course. But, at the age of 15, he went on a holiday to Corfu with 35 other teenagers with conditions linked to thalidomide. So what do you think happened at Corfu?
I have no idea what happened at Corfu.
No. Well, obviously it was a transformative trip, right? I mean, you're around your people for the first time in your life.
Uh-huh.
And of course it's going to be a very eye-opening experience. Obviously one of the things that a lot of people with disabilities may deal with is the struggle to be accepted by your peers, right?
Uh-huh.
The normal 13 to 16, you may want to date people or whatnot, and you may feel like you're last in line, right?
Right.
So this, of course, was something that they, 35 of these people this age, they're all coupling up, right? And the other thing that was kind of validating for him, and he's kind of talked about a little bit, is the common ways in which certain tasks were done. So for a lot of people with, phocomelia might have trouble with things like putting socks and shoes on because, their limbs are a little bit shorter, right? And they all have their way of doing it that maybe is similar to the others.
Right.
So this trip, of course, allowed for some social catching up. So we talked a little bit earlier about his musical career, you touched on it in the intro. Do you know that much about it, in depth? Or
not in
really?
depth. I mean, I've watched performances of his, and of course there was the drumming performance that he did on Loudermilk. Mm-hmm. But haven't seen too much more, aside from, various clips I saw on YouTube.
Right. Well, so between 1980 and 1995, he was a drummer with multiple rock bands. This includes the Fear of Sex, the Reasonable Strollers, Joyride, the Grateful Dead, and Living in Texas. I saw somewhere, and I couldn't really confirm this, that Living in Texas had a #1 single in Italy.
Okay.
In the 90s. Unfortunately, it's not very well documented anywhere that I can find. He also performed at the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2012 Paralympics held in London, which, I mean, of course, why not?
Right.
Do you remember the opening ceremonies performance at all? Have you seen it? Because I think I remember Disability Pride years ago, broadcast a little portion of it.
Nah, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, well,
something with Coldplay?
Well, yeah, so the closing ceremony he performed with Coldplay, but the opening ceremony performance was with Grey Eye Theater Company's Reasons to Be Cheerful, playing Ian Drury's Spasticus Autisticus.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sure you've at least heard that song before.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen it somewhere.
Yeah.
And so one of the interesting things that I found was his kind of perspective on his music career, where a lot of people didn't think that he could really perform, which of course is like central to that Loudermilk episode we keep talking about.
Right.
And so when he performs, decently, people think, of course, he's like the greatest drummer in the world, right? Because they had no expectations.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I remember. Yeah. He was perceived on a curve, but he actually is a decent drummer, though.
Yeah.
He's definitely better than some established ones.
Right. Exactly. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about kind of him moving on from his drumming career and some of his activism a little bit here. So, like, you're aware that he is an activist, but like,
yeah.
do you know like the extent of it or like anything to do with it, really?
I mean, I'm aware of some of it. Like I said, when I became a fan of his, did a little bit of research on him, but
right.
Please expound.
All right. So in 94, which was right around the end of his drumming career, or at least active drumming career,
right.
He woke up to the disability rights movement, quote unquote. And as you're aware, he of course was furious about the apartheid that is still somewhat present today in society.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's much lesser than it was in the 90s, which is really interesting for me as someone who's still relatively young, that attitudes have changed so much in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But the other thing that he, of course, is furious about is the lack of accountability for pharmaceutical companies about the effects of thalidomide.
Yes. Yes.
And maybe thalidomide is another thing that we'll actually talk about a little bit, because the history of thalidomide is actually quite in depth and fascinating. I just got to make sure that it's not too upsetting or depressing for people.
Gotcha.
Because we want to uplift people as much as we can. The other thing that I want to talk about is sort of his activism from the perspective of him being represented in media, right? Which is a huge component of all of this, right?
Yeah.
So he's, of course, acted in several high-profile shows, and he starred in one of the first advertisements featuring a disabled actor. Do you happen to know what he was what the advertisement was for?
No, what was it for?
Virgin Mobile. So It was mobile phones, telephones, cell phones.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, like many other things in this episode, I couldn't find the advertisement online anywhere or a description of it, really. But there was a mention of it in a Guardian article, and he was actually talking about it. So here's a little quote. "It was better for social attitudes toward the disabled than it was for my career. It was the first time a disabled person was used in a mainstream advert. Advertising is about aspirations. No one aspires to being disabled, but they do aspire to have the strength that disabled people need to carry out a normal life."
I love
That's clever advertising. Oh, isn't that great?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And he also noted in the same interview that the kids across the street still stared at him, but it was for a different reason. It was because he had a little notoriety. He was becoming famous. So they were like, "Oh, we have a little celebrity here," which is great. And now I kind of want to move on a little bit to his acting career, which, you probably know a little bit more about than any of the other topics we've thus far discussed.
Well, certain roles. Like, there was something I was aware of that, that I was kind of geeking about, that he's played two characters named Ray, one of them being the Materials character, although they called him most of the time Raymond. Though, and I'm not a Raymond, but still, it's a Ray.
Well, Raymond Garrett, of course, in his Dark Materials. Great trilogy, by the way. Anyone who hasn't read Phil Pullman's His Dark Materials, definitely you should get on that.
That's the Golden Compass,
Yep.
guys, if you don't know.
But anyways, so one of the first things he did on his way out of drumming was to join the Gray Eye Theater Company. Do you know a little bit about the company? Like, do you want to talk about that?
Nah, but was that the one where he did his one-man show that was based on the freak show guy, Stanislaus Barant, I think is how it's pronounced.
Oh, you're talking about Freak Show, I believe. Steelboy Freak. That's what it is.
Back in 2001, I believe it was.
Yeah, Steelboy Freak. I actually am unaware of whether that was with Gray Eye Theater Company or not, but
okay.
He was in a couple of productions with Gray Eye, but so Gray Eye Theater Company is Europe's leading disabled theater company. He was actually inspired to leave drumming after watching their production of Ubu. His first role, leading role with Gray Eye Theater Company, was the part of Dr. Prentice in Joe Orton's What the Butler Saw. And the play is a 2-act farce. Dr. Prentice is a psychiatrist. My understanding is he's trying to seduce a prospective secretary in an interview, and convinces her to become undressed, and then his wife walks into his office at the time, and he has to hide her.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So after What the Butler Saw, some of his subsequent theater roles in the 90s included the Group K production of Marisol and the title role of Johnny Saul at the Croydon Warehouse. Do you happen to know what his first major TV role was, Ray?
Nah.
No? It was ITV's 1998. Wow. 3-part World War II drama series, Unknown Soldier.
Oh, okay.
And a few years later, he appeared as the Seer Calchas in the TV miniseries Helen of Troy. I believe that was on BBC One, and it's based on the Iliad by Homer. So this is Odysseus and his whole trek home after Troy, like the Battle of Troy.
Gotcha.
The next big role I kind of want to talk about is Cast-Offs. Do you know anything about this show?
Nah.
Okay. It was a 2009 mockumentary kind of dramedy series satirizing reality TV on Channel 4 in the UK. Okay. What do you think it might be about?
Oh, I have no clue.
Based on that. Well, it follows a group of 6 disabled people who were sent to a remote British island for a fictional reality show.
Okay.
Each of the episodes concentrates on one of the different characters. I believe, there's someone with dwarfism, a paraplegic person, a blind person. Obviously, Mat Fraser played a thalidomide affected individual, someone who's deaf, cherubism. Like, there's a whole range of them. And this show actually is responsible for coining a phrase, spacking up. Do you have any idea what that might be?
No, what?
All right, well, so you're familiar with the phrase blacking up, right?
I'm not sure I am.
All right, well, so the phrase blacking up, as you might guess, means a non-black person playing a black character in a TV show or a movie, right?
Gotcha.
So spacking up, similarly, is a non-disabled person playing a disabled character.
Got it.
the line that apparently coined it in the show is "Spacking up is the new blacking up," which that made me chuckle a little bit when I saw it.
Got it. Got
A
it.
famous contemporaneous American example of spacking up would be Artie from Glee, who was played by Kevin McHale.
Okay.
Artie in the show is a wheelchair user. Kevin McHale, of course, is not. Which is actually interesting that he was in a Ryan Murphy show after Ryan Murphy did this with Artie.
Gotcha.
Given Mat Fraser's ideas about disability, of course.
Right.
So, do you happen to know anything about his play that he wrote, Thalidomide, a musical?
No, that I didn't even hear about.
Okay, well, in 2005, he wrote and produced Thalidomide, a musical. Damn, I am having trouble with that. It tells the story of a love affair between thalidomide survivor Glenn and a non-disabled woman, Katie Crawford, who was played by Anna Winslet, Kate Winslet's sister, by the way.
Oh, okay. I was wondering.
Yeah. Of course, Mat Fraser stars in the play. You want to guess how Winslet won the role?
No, how? You know what? I did a little bit of a cheat. I saw that she was an old one.
Yeah, you could say that. So she won the role in part because she didn't shy away from an audition request to mimic Fraser himself.
Okay.
So, I think that perfectly exemplifies where Matt is at,
right,
and whatnot. I did find an interesting criticism of the show from a counselor of Wolverhampton, Malcolm Gwinnett, and he said, "To exploit people in this way is frankly sick." And I think it's kind of an interesting sort of look at it when you think about, like, maybe I'm doing a little bit of assumptions here, but I imagine that Malcolm Gwinnett was not a disabled individual, right? And so he's making a judgment call.
Yeah.
About a play produced, written, directed, everything by a disabled individual, talking about their own story. I mean, Thalidomide the musical was basically a cartoonish version of, Mat Fraser's life.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, maybe it may have made Jerry Springer look tame, as Matt said at one point.
Right.
It's interesting to hear people who aren't necessarily affected by these things get upset about things that they don't really understand.
Yeah. Trust me, I
know. In June 2011, he appeared in the RTA1 soap opera, Fair City, playing Esther's son, David. And then in 2012, of course, there was the Olympics and Paralympics, which we already talked about, a little bit of his involvement in that. He also appeared as part of, like, the general thing with Britain. They had this thing called the Cultural Olympiad. Do you have any idea of what that is?
Nah. What is that?
So it was a series of, like, media and other types of performances that were tied to the Olympics in one way or another, kind of showcasing the cultural aspects of Great Britain and the UK. And part of that, he appeared in Kate O'Reilly's stage play In Water I'm Weightless.
Okay.
As we talked about a little bit earlier, he was in American Horror Story Freak Show, playing the...
Yeah, playing the Illustrated Seal.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny? Remember earlier I was asking if his show that his stage play, his play that he had done, which was called Seal Boy Freak, which is based on the life story of Stanislaus Barant, who went by the name CeeLo. It's so funny. I can't help but wonder if that's, part of the reason why that character was created in American Horror Story Freak Show. Because I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware, but a lot of those different seasons were actually based on actual real individuals, different American Horror Stories anthologies or urban legends, And yeah, I just wonder, if that had something to do with the decision for to include that character, and of course casting him to play it, That's all I have to say on that subject.
I think that could be definitely part of it. I'm also certain that it was just like, with Ryan Murphy, he does a lot of research into the things that he produces that are based on real life characters or real life people.
Yeah, and evidently CeeLo was very, was very popular, on the sideshow circuit.
Right, and Lobster Boy was another freak that was very famous at the time too.
Right,
CeeLo was around, so I imagine that it might be a little column A, a little column B here, where they were already thinking about it, was already percolating, and then wait, this guy already did this thing.
Yep,
let's try and reach out.
Yeah, and also, like I said, including that character, as one of the freak show characters for that season, that anthology season.
I have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of American Horror Story, so I have basically no recollection of any of this show. But I do remember it happened. I do remember seeing the promos for it.
Yeah.
So, and of course, we kind of talked a little bit about Roger Frostley, which is his character on Loudermilk. So let's talk a little bit about Frostley. So,
like I said, I mean, he was he was one of the main characters I looked forward to seeing in each episode.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I started watching the show. It would have been 2 or 3 years ago, in the middle, towards the end of the pandemic. I found it on Netflix.
Right.
And I got hooked instantly. So Loudermilk is a show that stars Ron Livingston as Loudermilk. He's a counselor for a addiction support group. I think it's any substance, I believe, is covered by it. And Frostley is a recovering addict. I believe alcoholic specifically, but
I think it was alcohol. Yeah.
And one of the episodes, brilliant episode, features a subplot of Frostley's character being conflicted about a beer commercial his former band is asked to perform in. The name of that episode right now is, I believe, Where's the Beans?
Okay.
Fourth episode of the entire show. So let's kind of talk a little bit about this. There's a subplot that's heavily featured, as I said. Do you remember anything about the scenes surrounding the commercial filming?
Yeah, but go on, tell everybody about it. It's very inspiring, that scene.
Yeah. So in the process of filming the commercial, his band shows up and the producer and director are just like, what the hell is this guy? Are they joking? Are they pulling a prank on us? This guy can't drum. Why would he be able to with those tiny arms, right? And Loudermilk, of course, overhears this and it's just I don't feel good about this anymore. And he walks up to Frostley and he's just like, you don't have to do this, man. I know you were, I was saying, just make the money, make your bandmates happy or whatever. But let's move on. At this point, a sound check is called for. And the producer and director are trying to pull him before they get to the sound check.
Yeah.
Obviously it doesn't work. And he does the sound check, performs, and they're just like, "Oh my God, you got to do this! You got to do this! We're gonna feature you!" Blah blah blah. And he's just like, screw you guys, and walks out.
Like I said, such an inspiring scene. I showed you I could do it. Mud in your eye or face or whatever the saying is, and went to stepping. Don't always judge a book by its cover.
Right. In 2017, he was cast as King Richard III in the Shakespeare play.
I knew about that, yeah.
Yeah. And I believe he said something about it was an example of a disabled person playing a disabled character, because Richard III, I believe, was famously disabled.
Right.
And as we were talking about a little bit earlier, in 2019, he was cast as Raymond Van Garrett in the BBC One adaptation of His Dark Materials.
Great show.
Great show. Great source material. In 2020, he wrote and curated the BBC 4 disability series Crypt Tales, and played Jim Bell in episodes 1 and 2 of Silent Witness Series 23. I didn't really have a lot of time to look into Crypt Tales too heavily, and I actually haven't watched it myself, but my understanding is that it talks about real life stories of disabled individuals and their experiences.
Got it.
And in 2023, he played a minor role as a hospital administrator, Steve, in ITV's Maternal, and appeared in Sister Boniface Mysteries in Series 2, Episodes 5 and 10, playing Clement Rugg. And then the most recent thing that I kind of saw was in 2024, he played the role of Daedalus in the Netflix series Chaos. Now, Ray, we both saw that in his filmography, and we both kind of looked at it and we were like, I wonder about that one, right? Like knowing the story of Daedalus, right?
Those things got clipped, huh? Okay, I see the irony what you guys are doing. Okay, yeah, and you know what? Once again, I did watch that show. By the way, it was not renewed, but yeah, once again, he was great in it. You know, his character was great. The cast was great, but yeah, once again, I enjoyed his scenes. You know, a few others too, but yeah, it's a shame that we won't, see another season of that.
Yeah. It's funny because like I kept seeing it. It kept getting served to me when I still had a Netflix access. And I just kept going like, I don't know if I'm going to watch it. And now that I'm like, oh, I kind of wish I had. Not because of him, but it was just like, I didn't know it was about Greek mythology. And I'm definitely a little bit of a Greek mythology nerd.
Same here. But don't put yourself through it because it ends on the cliffhanger like usual for Netflix shows that get canceled. You'll only be highly upset.
But yeah, and he's done various other things as well. The freak show stuff we kind of touched on with CeeLo and everything.
Yeah.
There were a couple documentaries he did, and whatnot. And he's done some pantomime as well with his wife here in America.
Yeah. I saw how they were very heavy on that whole alt art scene in New York.
So, yeah, when I pitched the idea of Mat Fraser with Ray, I was like, I kind of want to talk about someone who, is a disabled actor, but it's not just like kind of a sort of like the typical narrative surrounding the disability as part of it. Like it's very much like they're getting the roles and of course they're getting the representation, but it's not because of the disability. It's like in addition to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And, Matt was, of course, a great example of that.
So, there you have it, folks. We had discussion on a very admirable actor with admirable characters that he's played. And so we bring this episode to a close. And thank you for listening to us talk about, Mat Fraser, who we've been geeking out over for like a couple of years now, maybe a few years, I guess. At our age, time flies. And so everybody, Phill and I say goodbye and close it. Have a good night.
Yeah, bye everyone.
Please visit our accessible website at www.disabilitypridepa.org. You can find us on social media at Disability Pride PA on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.